is the panel. Former Liberal Minister and Speaker Bronwyn Bishop and former Labor campaign guru Bruce Hawker. But Bronwyn, first, you must have mixed opinions about the rise and rise again of Pauline Hanson now that she's warning that Islam is incompatible with our democracy, because 11 years ago, I dug this up, 11 years ago you called for the hijab to be banned from schools, and you were mercilessly attacked by the media, including, Bronwyn, I'm sorry to say, including by me.
Oh dear.
Now, I'm just wondering, apologies, I'm just wondering, if you'd been listened to then, would there be a Pauline Hanson now?
Well, I think that's a bit of a long bow to draw, but the point I was making at the time was that I wanted young girls at school, in public schools, to understand what freedom was and to just be in their school uniforms. And if people in later life wish to become traditional in wearing of that clothing, then that was for them. But that young girls in public school should be simply wearing the uniform like everybody else.
Bruce, this is going to be a problem for Labor, isn't it? I mean, one of the reasons that Pauline Hanson's come is that there's been largely a vacuum. The few that have spoken up before, like Bronwyn, then got bashed into silence. That creates the space for a Pauline Hanson. What is Labor's best response now to her?
Well, first of all, I think Pauline Hanson represents a more complex sort of range of views. I mean, I'm sure an opposition to Muslim immigration would be, front and centre in that, I guess, universe of views that she represents. But it's, she doesn't just represent that. She in many ways represents, I guess, a psychology, the people who've been left behind and feel that they've been left out of the discussion, and she becomes a champion for that. Now, I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad thing, although I don't agree with a lot of the things that she espouses. Look, I don't know that, even though that poll came out the other day which showed, strong support for stopping Muslim immigration, I don't know whether that's a major vote changer for people's voting intentions. It'd be interesting to test that a little bit more. But, I found it quite disturbing that 40% of Labor people were supportive of a ban, and 34% of Greens were too. So clearly there's a view out there which goes right across the political mainstream that says, we really do need to seriously address this issue. I think...
but what? How? This is the thing. Like, Bronwyn, you were there, right, with... John Howard, when he saw the Hanson thing last time. Now, what he did, as you well know, he picked certain policies that he could agree with and promoted them as his own, leaving her with the dregs, as it were, the unelectable dregs. Well, is Malcolm Turnbull able to do that, and what should he do if he's going to do a Howard to the renewed Hanson threat?
I think what Howard, in fact, saw was that Pauline Hanson had the capacity to draw from the Liberal Party base and do to the Liberal Party what the Greens have subsequently done to the Labor Party in terms of primary vote. Now, if you remember back, one of the things he did not do was to attack the people who voted for her. He always said they were entitled to express their point of view. What happened to cut her from power and to cut her out was that there was an agreement by the major parties to put her last in compulsory preferential voting, and that effectively kept her out of a seat. Now, what has happened when the voting was changed with the amendments to Senate voting, it became impossible for the major parties to any longer put her at the bottom and cut her out of any preferences. And it was left to the people to choose themselves. And they chose to elect her. 600,000 of them voted for her. So what you saw was an absence of the ability to manipulate the system and an attitude that had changed, I think, in the country, that had seen that the people were not prepared to talk about things that really worried people. And there is a concern, that integration concern, when we see that there are radical Islamic terrorists And simply you are radical when you want to impose your way of life on others who don't wish to have it imposed upon them. That's radical. And we've seen those people kill Australians. And there's been a denial. People who have simply not wanted to address the problem and speak about it and brush it under the carpet. She was prepared to take it head on.
But that's exactly why she has to... But that's exactly why she... Bruce, go ahead.
On that point of Bronwyn's, I think there's some validity in all that. But, of course, in 2001, John Howard really did take as much of her ground as he possibly could. Correct. In that election campaign where he said, we decide who comes into this country in the circumstances in which they do, made a big issue out of the Tampa and vote people. Policy. And of course that was a very successful political tactic, and it won him an election which he may not have won otherwise. So it was a case of him mainstreaming a lot of her values. So let's be mindful of that.
I don't think that...
Well, I'm going to be fascinated to see whether Malcolm Turnbull can do that same trick. But, Bruce, to you, the former Prime Minister, Kevin Rudd, who you worked for, is continuing this feud with Malcolm Turnbull, attacking him yet again for refusing to nominate him as Secretary-General to the United States. Here he is on Sky News today.
Good old Malcolm Turnbull decided at 1 minute to midnight that was not to be the case. We all know in the case of Malcolm Turnbull, it's pretty simple. Malcolm felt the pressure of the hard right wing of his party, having had a narrow win in the last election, and as a result of that, lost courage of his convictions.
Is this doing Kevin Rudd any good?
Well, he's not running for any political office now, or it would seem high office, thanks to Malcolm Turnbull. Look, my gut feeling about this is that looking at that image, you see the UN building, I think, in the background, it was probably too good an opportunity to pass up. If Malcolm Turnbull happened to be in town, why not rain on his parade a little bit and get something off his liver? And, I don't think many people really begrudge him that. I hope he doesn't keep going on with it. I just think it was fair enough to take that opportunity to point out that Turnbull wasn't really talking about matters of principle there. He was talking about how he was really responding to the right wing of his own party and caving into them and showing once again that he's pretty weak sort of a character.
Oh.
Well, I think he's doing the right thing, but by turning to Conservatives like Bronwyn, by the way. Bronwyn, in Liberal Party Director Tony Nutt today, who we discussed earlier, gave a speech about the Liberal election campaign that, well, it hadn't gone so well because clearly it left the Prime Minister looking shell-shocked on election night, stunned that it had gone so wrong. But Nutt today did not identify a single thing the campaign had done wrong. In fact, he said it was a great campaign. Malcolm Turnbull had been crucial to the result. Bronwyn, is this the campaign that you recognised?
Andrew, what a ridiculous proposition it is to ask the director of a campaign to go to the National Press Club to be questioned by members of the press gallery about a campaign he's run. It's just not the sort of thing that to me makes any sense at all. Of course it wasn't the campaign that I expected to be run. I did expect to see the ads that said Bill Shorten out of his own mouth saying that he would run the country like he ran the trade unions and all the stuff that was out of the Royal Commission. Yes, I expected to see all of that. And it didn't happen. But the idea that you were going to see some sort of mea culpa at the press club, I thought Tony Nutt performed remarkably well. I'd kept a straight face doing it.
Hey, Bruce, a victory for the little man, apparently. The New South Wales state government seems to realise it's absolutely cactus unless it backflips on this moralistic, we're going to ban greyhound racing things, a suggestion that they will actually now backflip. What do you reckon?
Oh, look, I think that decision was one of the most disgraceful, high-handed and unfair things I've seen in state politics. And I've been involved in state politics for longer than I want to recall. You just don't go about doing it in that way. You go through a proper process of consultation, not just listen to the results of some inquiry, talk to the industry and work out how you can sort the problems out. They didn't do any of those things, and now Baird is running scared. And let's not be in any doubt about that. He's doing this for one reason only, because he sees defeat coming down the road, first in the by-elections, which are coming up in seats like Orange, a country seat, and probably Wollongong as well, and possibly in the federal, in the state election a few months after that. So I think he's got a lot of problems. I haven't seen anyone on the Liberal side drop from political grace so quickly as he has, and I hope he ditches it quickly.
True. Look, Bronwyn Bishop, Bruce Hawker, thank you so much for your time.
Great pleasure.